Did you know you possess two distinct spirits, Neshama and Ruach? Let's discover the biblical confirmation. Hello, welcome to the explanation with Sam Kneller. This episode, Neshama and Ruach, the ultimate backbone of humans, comes from the book Mind-Body Problem Solved and is brought to you by theexplanation.com. Neshama and Ruach, the ultimate backbone of humans. Neshama and Ruach are the two components possessed by every single human being. Together, they confer humanity on humankind. Neshama and Ruach are the essential constituents that endow humans with their humanity. The goal of this chapter is to show the reality and inseparability of this twosome spirit duo. We will discuss the exact role of Ruach later. We're focusing on the creation of humans, specifically what makes humans human. The Bible presents the Neshama and the Ruach as imparted by God to humans. These next chapters about Ruach cast the base of religion. Obviously, Christ is the foundation, but it casts the base of religion and psychology. The explanation will show you why each human possesses Ruach and how to use it advantageously, both religiously and secularly. We'll start by seeing this association of Neshama and Ruach as an indivisible twosome. We saw this next verse in the last chapter, but it is the first time the duo is joined, therefore important to see again. The KJV translators omitted the translation for one of the Hebrew words. In biblical Hebrew, you can see both Ruach and Neshama appear, and they are both associated with humans. The image for Genesis 7, verse 22. All that had the breath of the Spirit of life in the nostrils of all that was in the dry land died. But in Genesis 7, verse 22, in the King James Version, all, that is humans, in whose nostrils was the breath, that's the one word for both H7307, Ruach, and H5397, Neshama. And all in whose nostrils was the breath of life, of all that was in the dry land, died. The New King James Version has, all in whose nostrils was the breath of the Spirit of life, all that was on the dry land, died. Straight away, we see a significant issue that is going to confront us throughout our study of Ruach, its translation. In Genesis chapter 6, verse 17, Ruach Chaim is translated breath of life. And in Genesis 2, verse 7, Nishmat Chaim is also translated identically in English, breath of life. But you cannot translate two different Hebrew words with the identical English word. In English, it is impossible to see this and correctly understand what the Word of God is telling us. Verify it yourself at unlockbiblemeaning.com. Let me be quite straightforward with you. The KJV translators did not understand, as with most people today, the role of Ruach. Similarly, they didn't realize that of the Neshama either. And to top it off, who understands the relationship between Ruach and Neshama? In Genesis 7 verse 22, the Ruach and Neshama are side by side. They are different, and at the same time, both are interconnected and directly involved with human life. This association is so important for comprehension that we're going to look at all 10 verses where we find this twosome. There are only 24 verses with Neshama, that's H5397, in the Old Testament, of which a whopping 10 include Ruach. I dare say that very few Bible readers are aware of the relationship of Neshama and Ruach. Even fewer know there are numerous important biblical references to this duo. We'll see them in Bible book order. 2 Samuel chapter 22, verse 16. And the channels of the sea appeared. The foundations of the world were discovered. At the rebuking of the Lord, at the blast, and that's H5397 Neshama. At the blast of the breath, that's H7307 Ruach. At the blast of the breath of his nostrils. As we go through these verses, first, see who possesses Neshama and Ruach. In 2 Samuel, it's God. And secondly, see for what and how God uses Neshama and Ruach. In this case, literally to shake earth to protect his servant David. They emanate from God's nostrils, so it's fitting he blew the Neshama into the first human's nostrils. Genesis chapter 2, verse 7. Job chapter 4, verse 9. By the blast, that's Neshama, of God they perish, and by the breath, Ruach, of his nostrils are they consumed. Eliphaz, Job's friend, is reminding him how these godly attributes put down enemies. Both terms can have both a positive and negative effect, depending on the context. This is the second key to master biblical Hebrew. God gives and takes life. See Deuteronomy 32, verse 39. This is an important concept for modern liberal Christians who see God only as a do-gooder, loving God. God is love, 1 John 4, verse 8, but it includes his wisdom of knowing when and how to take life as well. Keep in mind that the same instruments, Neshama and Ruach, that give life can also be used to take life. This is the paradox of God, particularly for those who don't understand God's purpose for humankind. Job 27, verse 3. All the while that is Job, all the while my breath, that's Neshama, is in me, and the Spirit, the Ruach of God, is in my nostrils. Job, during his ordeal, confirms he still possesses Neshama and Ruach. He knew the difference between these two elements, and also that he, a human being, like all other humans, possessed both of them. Job 32, verse 8. But there is a spirit, Ruach, there is a spirit in man, and the inspiration, the Neshama, and the inspiration of the Almighty, gives them understanding. Important verse. Humans possess the Ruach. It is a human component. This is the spirit, translated mind among other words, by the KJV translators. A correct translation I will expand on in the next chapters. You will see why, in humans, the spirit cannot work without the Neshama, and vice versa. Both essences must be possessed to be human. Neshama, given by God as we saw in Genesis 2 verse 7, is directly related to the ability to understand. This is consciousness that confers the human qualities of purpose, function, socialization, rulership, and reasoning on humans. Ruach acts on these 5 attributes, and this God-given duo makes humans who they are. Job 33, verse 4. The Spirit, the Ruach, the Spirit of God, has made me, and the breath, the Neshama, the breath of the Almighty, has given me life. Important verse. This is parallel to Genesis 2, verse 7. There we saw God formed, Yatsar. Here we see God's Spirit made. This is additional complementary information. Job points out God's attribute of using the Ruach with a capital S to create, and the Neshama to give life. Job 34, verse 14. If he, that is God, if he set his heart upon man, if he gather unto himself his spirit, that is Ruach, and his breath, Neshama. This is an important verse. If, or rather when a human dies, God collects each human's Ruach and Neshama. The Neshama, our ability to understand, our intellect, Job 32 verse 8 above, and the Spirit that animated us return to God on our death. God gave them to us to live our life. On death, they return to Him. Why? We shall see, but for now, retain that both Neshama and Ruach return to God. Not just the Ruach, which is what most Bible readers know. God gave both Neshama and Ruach. On death, both return to Him. Secondarily, as we go through this duo of Neshama and Ruach with a focus on the latter, notice man's spirit, small s, as in Job 34:14, and God's Spirit, with a capital S, as in Job 33 verse 4. The same essence, spirit, but 2 very different states. We shall explain this and their relationship. Psalm 18 verse 15. Then the channels of waters were seen, and the foundations of the world were discovered at your rebuke, O Lord, at the blast, that is Neshama, at the blast of the breath, and that's Ruach, at the blast of the breath of your nostrils. This verse is similar to 2 Samuel 22:16 above, about how God can deal with enemies. Isaiah chapter 42 verse 5. Thus says God the Lord, He that created the heavens and stretched them out, He that spread forth the earth, and that which comes out of it, He that gives breath, that's Neshama, to the people upon it, and spirit, that's Ruach, to them that walk therein. God is the creator of earth, flora, and fauna, what comes out of it. And at the pinnacle, he gives both Neshama and Ruach to humans. This verse is clear that all human beings receive Neshama and Ruach. Nowhere does it say animals receive both these components. The explanation has elaborated on how the Bible shows Neshama is for humans alone, while animals do possess Ruach alone, as we saw in Genesis 7, verse 15. Isaiah 57 and verse 16. For I will not contend forever, neither will I always wrath. For the Spirit, that is Ruach, should fail before me, and the souls, and that is Neshama, which I have made. God will not be upset with humankind continually. He's angry because humankind is misusing the Neshama and Ruach God has given them. In other words, humans are not using their God-given components to rule for peace and prosperity. To the contrary. But God says in this verse and context that he will straighten the situation out. He will not continue in his wrath. This is the last verse with Neshama and Ruach together, and is the fabulous faith we can have in God for the future of humankind. Notice how throughout these passages, the translations of Neshama and Ruach are continually changing and sometimes switching from one to the other. Note the translation of this last Neshama is soul, the same as nephesh. Indeed, the KJV translators were at a loss with these biblical Hebrew words. And in all translations, it is impossible to understand what's going on. Remember, we're explaining a fundamental component of each human being worldwide, yet readers and scholars don't comprehend it. We don't understand what a human being really is. Amazing. But you are learning the answer to this enigma from the explanation. From these verses, we can understand at least 4 essential points about the components of each and every human being. First, Neshama and Ruach, the latter in particular, include breath, breathing, but both represent something much deeper than that. Second, since God possesses them in one way or another, we shall see they cannot be physical. Neshama and Ruach have immaterial counterparts with humans. Therefore, humans possess intangible components. Third, since Neshama and Ruach, being metaphysical, are invisible to and unmeasurable by any physical devices, this means they are inaccessible to science. We're into the realm of the meeting of theology and science, even if science doesn't know it. Neshama, and particularly Ruach, are the missing links between these two disciplines. What a fascinating subject. Stay with the explanation, because Ruach has much to do with science. Fourth, these initial conclusions about Neshama and Ruach, that they are immaterial components of each human, are the solution to the mind-body problem. The mind and body are 2 totally separate entities. One, composed of the 2 spirits, is transcendent and intangible, while the second, the body, is material and physical. The title of this book, Mind-Body Problem Solved, is not in vain, but we are going to discover much more, how the immaterial components in all humans work and why we possess them. We will also reveal how to maximize their use, both secularly and spiritually, for the benefit of peace and prosperity. God possesses Ruach. It is therefore clearly more than the physical breath that humans and animals possess. When the Ruach is associated with the Neshama, this is reserved solely for humans. Combined, they endow each human being with their spiritual components, which differentiates and places them mountains above animals. In the next chapter, we'll hone in on Ruach and see exactly what it is and what it accomplishes. This episode is brought to you by The Explanation Bible Institute. Unlock Bible meaning with 7 keys to master biblical Hebrew, a proven method to grasp the God-given original meaning of Scripture, available at theexplanation.com. Keep seeking answers to the big questions in life and reveal the explanation.